I've been a nurse for just a few weeks now. I took a night shift at this old hospital to help pay for my mom's medical bills. I thought it would be a good way to gain experience. But this place is something else. The walls have peeling paint, and the lights flicker all the time. It smells musty, mixed with that strong antiseptic smell. The first few nights went okay. I had a busy schedule, but it felt manageable. Then, on my third night, I heard it. A distant cry echoing down the hallway. I figured it was a patient in distress, so I went to check. I felt this chill run down my spine, but I pushed it aside. My heart thumped louder with each step as I moved toward the sound. When I got to the nurse's station, the hallway was empty. I saw nothing. It was strange, but I thought maybe I had imagined it. But after that night, things changed. I started hearing giggles, soft and eerie. They seemed to follow me. At first, I thought I was just tired. Maybe I was worn out from my 2 jobs that I didn't tell anyone. I thought they'd laugh at me. Then one night, while standing by a patient's bed, I caught a shadow out of the corner of my eye. It was there for just a moment. When I turned my head, nothing was there. I shrugged it off, but I felt uneasy. The patient started whispering about something. They would catch my eye and mumble things I couldn't quite hear. I nodded, but it made my skin crawl. One man even told me about a girl who used to roam the halls during night shifts. He said she wore a white dress. Some never left the hospital. I thought he was just confused or seeing things. In the supply room, things went missing. Bandages were gone, equipment was misplaced. I would swear I left things in one spot, and they'd be moved. I thought my coworkers were playing jokes on me. But it felt different. My stomach knotted up. I felt like someone was watching me. Then one night, I found myself alone. My coworkers had gone home. The giggles grew louder, almost mocking. My heart raced, and I felt frozen. I called out, "Is anyone there?" My voice echoed, but there was no answer. I turned around, and the hallway was empty again. The tension was thick in the air, and I gasped. "What is happening?" I whispered to myself. I felt like I was losing my mind. I decided to leave the supply room, feeling the darkness close in around me. I paced back to the nurse's station, hoping to find other staff members. The laughter faded into silence, but I could still feel something lurking behind me that I can't explain what I experienced during those shifts. All I know is I still feel a slight chill in my bones when I think about it. I don't know if I'll ever get used to working there. I still wonder if something is truly waiting in those shadowy hallways. I arrived for my shift feeling tense, like I had a weight on my chest. The air was thick, almost electric. I tried to shake it off. The usual routine grounded me. I entered the nurse's station, where the blinking monitors and faint beeping offered some comfort. But it didn't help. As the clock ticked into the early hours, a shadow of dread crept in. I found myself checking in on patients more often than needed, trying to shake the growing unease. Then, I caught sight of the old medicine cart briefly parked in front of room 218. I was sure I had returned it to the supply room. I approached it cautiously. The sound of muffled whispers floated past me again, sending chills racing up my spine. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. No response. Cautiously, I peeked into the room. A patient lay sleeping, the rhythmic sounds of the heart monitor filling the silence. But next to the bed, the empty space where a chair should have been felt oddly heavy. I felt rooted to the ground, drawn into the room like a moth to a flame. That's when I noticed something out of place, a small, white dress hanging on the back of the door. I instantly thought of the stories the patients told me, the one about the girl. My stomach twisted tightly. I didn't remember it being there before, and I wondered if one of the nurses had played another prank on me. I quickly pulled my gaze away, pushing back thoughts of what could be lurking in those shadows. The next few hours dragged, filled with the distant giggles I now recognized as something more than my imagination. I avoided the hallway where I'd heard them before, keeping my head down as I moved swiftly from patient to patient. Then, while checking the chart on a patient in room 212, I felt a presence. The hair on my arm stood up, and something prickled in the back of my mind. I turned slightly, and there she was, a fleeting glimpse of a girl in a white dress darting around the corner at the end of the hall. My heart raced, and I followed her instinctively that I sprinted down the corridor, my legs pumping faster than I ever thought possible. But when I turned the corner, all I found was an empty stairwell. It was dark, and the air felt colder. I hesitated, dread washing over me. Maybe I had just imagined it. Wait. I called out, but my voice hung in the air, unanswered. There was no one there. I leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. My mind raced. I had to confront this. But how? The shadows closed in around me, and I felt those giggles again, louder this time. They echoed off the walls like a taunt. With my heart pounding, I stumbled back toward the nurse's station. As I glanced over my shoulder, my breath caught in my throat. The door of room 218 was now ajar, swinging gently as if inviting me back in. I felt a pull towards it, a curiosity mixed with fear. I needed to know what was truly happening. Taking a deep breath, I edged closer, feeling an icy chill around me. And just before stepping inside, I saw something flash, a figure in the corner, hidden in the shadows. I swallowed hard, wondering if I was truly ready to face what waited for me there. Taking a steadying breath, I pushed the door open just enough to step inside room 218. A rush of cold air met me, sending a shiver down my spine. The patient lay still, blissfully unaware of the unease creeping through the air. I glanced around, searching for the figure I had seen, but it had vanished. Then I noticed the white dress again. It swayed slightly, as if moved by a gentle breeze. I glanced toward the window, but it was shut tight. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just some prank. It was something more unsettling, something I couldn't ignore. As I stepped further into the room, my heart pounding against my ribcage. The curtains fluttered softly at the corners, as though whispering secrets. I took another step, and that's when I noticed something on the floor, a small, dusty shoe. It looked just like one from the stories, a child's shoe, forgotten but full of memories. I crouched down to pick it up, but the moment my fingers touched the fabric, a loud clattering sound reverberated down the hallway. I jumped, dropping the shoe and standing back up, panic seizing me. I turned toward the door, doubt creeping in. Was someone there? I whispered to myself. Just then, the giggles echoed again, this time clearer, like they were just outside my door, teasing me. My heart raced as I sheepishly stepped closer to the door, instinct telling me to look out. I strained to catch a glimpse of whoever or whatever was lurking beyond. As I cracked the door open, I could see no one. The corridor seemed empty, yet the tension in the air was palpable. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me. I spun around, but before I could react, the lights flickered, casting odd shadows across the room. Everything plunged into chaos for a moment, and without thinking, I pulled the door shut, trying to stabilize my nerves. That's when I glanced down at the small, white dress again. It hung there, still softly waving as if it had a life of its own. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to the girl I had seen. Who was she? What did she want? I remembered the stories, the girl who roamed these halls, her presence as chilling as it was persistent. I thought I could dismiss them as typical hospital lore, but now, every tale felt too real. Then the heart monitor in the room recorded a sudden spike. I turned back to the patient. She stirred slightly, mumbling something under her breath. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I leaned closer, trying to catch the words, but the whispers escalated into a chorus, filling my head with confusion. And then, with a final flicker, the lights went out completely. Everything was engulfed in shadow, silence wrapped around me like a thick blanket. My breath caught in my throat as I braced myself, both curiosity and fear battling inside me. "Please," I said softly into the darkness, feeling a sense of desperation. Just then, I heard a child's laughter behind me, clear and light, cutting through the dense silence. I turned quickly, my heart racing, but no one was there. The darkness loomed, teasing me, inviting me into its unsettling embrace. I knew I couldn't stay here. But what awaited me beyond this room? With adrenaline coursing through me, I knew I had to find out. I stumbled toward the door, resolve hardening within me. Whatever was happening, I needed to confront it. As I stepped back into the corridor, I could feel the girl's presence flickering just out of reach. What did she want? Before I could answer that question, a sudden thought struck me. What if I wasn't the only one searching for her? The dim light from the emergency exit sign flickered in the distance. I stepped out into the corridor, the silence swallowing me whole. Heart pounding, I forced myself to move forward. Each step echoed off the sterile walls, a constant reminder that I was aiming for a destination unknown. As I walked, I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched. I remembered the stories I heard during my first week here, whispers of footsteps following the overworked nurses, shadows lurking just out of sight. And now, those stories felt like warnings I should be heeded. I approached the nurse's station, hoping to find someone else who might share my unease. The place was deserted, an unsettling stillness hanging in the air. I glanced at the clock, it was well past midnight. Where was everyone? Then I saw a small flash of movement at the end of the hallway, like a flicker of white. I froze, my breath hitching. There, by the stairwell, the figure of the girl danced for just a heartbeat before vanishing behind the wall. My heart raced. Was I hallucinating, or was she really there? Hello. I called out softly, hesitant. No answer came, only my own echo bouncing back at me. Then I turned to the stairwell, curiosity mixing with fear. I could feel the pull to investigate. Lisa had said the girl sometimes went there, but the thought brought a swell of dread. What if I wasn't alone? I padded cautiously toward the stairs, the air growing colder with each step. As I neared the entrance to the staircase, I suddenly heard that familiar laughter again, louder this time, ringing out like a bell through the stillness. I nearly stumbled back. This was no game. It felt ominous. Please let me help you, I said, hoping to sound braver than I felt. As the laughter faded, a sudden chill gripped the air. It was like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in an instant. I glanced down at my arms, goosebumps prickled against my skin. I hesitated at the steps, something was off. The hairs on my neck stood on end as if I was being beckoned deeper down. Taking a deep breath, I stepped onto the first staircase, but before I could move further, a loud crash echoed from the patient room I had just left. My instincts kicked in, I spun around, sprinting back down the corridor toward room 218. As I reached the door, I paused. The handle rattled violently. A whisper brushed past my ear, "Help me." The voice was soft yet demanding, saturating the air with a desperate plea. Heart racing, I pushed the door open quickly. The room was dark, but I could see the patient's bed was now empty. Panic flooded over me. Where had she gone? That was impossible. I had just left her there. Then I spotted something on the floor, a new item that hadn't been there before. It glowed faintly, revealing itself in the dim moonlight filtering through the window. My breath caught as I leaned down closer. That's when I saw it, a small locket, the same white dress pattern etched into the surface. My stomach tightened. What connected this locket to the girl? And what did it mean for the patient? The silence returned, deafening and heavy. I could feel the weight of question after question pressing against me. Answers were too elusive. I had stumbled upon something far more unsettling than I had imagined, and the deeper I dug, the more danger loomed ahead. I held the locket in my trembling hand, the metal cool against my palm. It felt wrong. Setting it down would mean admitting I was part of something I didn't understand, something dark lurking in these hallways. My mind raced with possibilities. Who did it belong to? Why was it here? A loud bang jolted me from my thoughts. The sound came from the hallway, echoing ominously. I froze again, every instinct screaming at me to hide. I glanced towards the door, debating whether to run or investigate. As if sensing my indecision, the door suddenly crashed open and slammed against the wall. There, silhouetted in the dim light, stood a nurse. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, as if she, too, had seen something she couldn't explain. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, glancing furtively over her shoulder. "Who was in that room?" I demanded, my voice rising. She shook her head, backing away. "It's not safe. You need to leave now," she urged. "What do you mean?" "There was a girl." "No," she snapped, panic edging her voice. "You have to understand, sometimes, they don't want to be found." That made no sense. My heart thudded louder in my chest. "What did you mean by they?" Before she could answer, the lights above flickered violently, plunging us into darkness for a split second. A low rumble reverberated through the hall, and I could feel the floor shake beneath my feet. I grabbed the edge of the nurse's station for support. The lights returned, flickering between the usual hum and dimness, revealing the nurse was gone. Swallowing hard, I took a step back, my eyes darting for any sign of her. Had I imagined her? The encounter felt real, too real. The laughter returned, echoing in my mind and wrapping around me like a vine. It was louder now, more urgent, almost taunting. I glanced over at the open door of room 218, the ghostly light of the locket flickering like a beacon in the dark. I felt the locket pulling at me once more. But I wasn't ready to confront whatever it was tied to, yet my feet seemed to have a mind of their own, inching toward the room. Just as I was about to step inside, I noticed movement again, a shadow racing past the end of the corridor. This time, it was too fast for me to even comprehend. I was overwhelmed by a mix of fear and adrenaline. Then, without warning, another crash echoed down the hall, more violent this time. "Run!" A voice screamed, almost unrecognizable, a combination of desperation and urgency that sent chills down my spine. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of shrieks. It was a sound of anguish, intertwined with the cries of lost souls. I was paralyzed, caught in a web of horror and curiosity. I glanced back at the locket one last time. I felt the walls closing in, urging me to act. That I took a deep breath, the air thick and heavy, and decided then that I had to get out of here. I sprinted for the nearest exit, each footstep pounding with a frantic rhythm, leaving whatever I had just unearthed behind, but as I approached the exit, the shadows around me seemed to clash together, even darker than before. I didn't dare look back. I bolted forward just as the laughter turned into a chilling whisper, "You can't escape me." That stopped me in my tracks. I wasn't running fast enough. The night felt endless as I broke through the door into the open air, but the shadows trailing behind me were far from done. I stumbled outside, breathing in the cool night air, desperate to shake off the screams echoing in my mind. My heart pounded as I turned around, half expecting to see the shadows spilling out after me. Instead, the hospital loomed like a giant, dark monolith, silent now, as if it was letting me go for now. What just happened? I muttered to myself, shaking my head. I needed to make sense of it all, but the fear still gripped me tightly. I felt exposed, caught in the headlights of a nightmare I couldn't quite escape. That I glanced at the locket still clutched in my hand. The light from the street lamp caught it, illuminating its intricate design, but it only deepened my confusion. What secrets did it hold? I took a few unsteady steps away from the building. Then a soft rustle behind me made my skin prickle. My instincts screamed for me to move faster, to get away from whatever had been tormenting me. But I couldn't leave it like this. Some part of me felt tied to that place, like it was drawing me back. Taking a deep breath, I turned toward the entrance again. I had to know what was happening, to face whatever horrors awaited me inside. But my legs hesitated, rooted in place by a mix of terror and curiosity. I was about to step closer when I heard a faint sound echoing from somewhere deep within the building. It was a child's laugh. The realization struck me like a punch to the gut. A child? In an abandoned hospital? I took a cautious step back, uncertainty flooding my mind again. Let us go, I whispered to myself, trying to convince my feet to retreat. But I couldn't leave. I felt an inexplicable pull, like I had to see what was happening that I knew I was in over my head, but I stepped forward. The hospital loomed large and intimidating, casting long shadows that enveloped the ground. As I reached the door, it creaked open by itself, revealing a flicker of dim light beyond. I hesitated only a moment before stepping back inside. The hallway felt eerily familiar, and the laughter echoed again, now sounding closer. I approached room 218, sensing its significance. The air was thick with tension, and every step felt heavy. I was up against something I couldn't understand, drawn by a force that was both terrifying and unexplainable. Just then, I noticed something flash in my peripheral vision, a figure darting past the corner of my sight. My breath hitched as I turned. A small, fleeting silhouette briefly danced in the weak light before disappearing into darkness. I followed, my pulse racing with fear. I was not alone. Who was there? I called, forcing my voice to stay steady, though it trembled. No answer came, just a whispered invitation, the insinuation that whatever was here wanted me to follow. That was when I saw it. A reflection flickered in the glass of a nearby window. It wasn't just my own face staring back at me, it was a child's, wide-eyed and reaching out. My heart dropped. I thought I was alone. But I wasn't. Now I had to decide, confront whatever was imprinted on that reflection or flee. I felt the weight of those piercing eyes on me, and just before I could decide, the lights flickered again. I realized with dread that the shadows were closing in. Stay away from me. I shouted into the darkness, but my voice felt small against the growing tension. There was a moment of deafening silence, then, somewhere nearby, I heard the quiet giggle again, too close, too real. And it was all I could do to hold my ground. I stood frozen, my breath thick with dread. The child's laughter rang through the rumbling silence, each echo pulling at my insides. Maybe I should have left when I had the chance, but something kept me anchored in place, waiting for an answer, even as the shadows encroached on every side. As I strained to listen, the laughter faded but was replaced by a soft shuffling sound. It seemed to be coming from the supply closet down the hall. Without thinking, I took a step toward it, drawn by an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity. My hand gripped the locket tightly, as if it could provide some protection against whatever was lurking in the darkness. I approached the door, the handle cold under my palm. The wood creaked as I nudged it open, revealing a dimly lit space cluttered with dusty medical equipment. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows over the walls, heightening the sense of danger. I peered inside. The shadows danced on the walls, but there was no sign of anyone or anything there. The air felt heavy, thick with the scent of antiseptic and decay. I scanned the corners, half expecting to see the child hiding, their small figure pressed against the wall, but then, on the ground, I noticed something that sent chills racing down my spine, a tiny shoe, scuffed and worn, hidden beneath a pile of old bandages. I stepped closer and realized it was a child's shoe, unmistakable in its delicate craftsmanship. There could be no mistake, it belonged to the figure I had seen in the reflection. My hands trembled as I picked it up, my mind racing. Who had it belonged to? Was this child just a figment of my imagination, or was something sinister at play? I dropped the shoe as if it had burned my fingers, and it clattered against the floor. As I backed away, the faint giggle returned, this time surrounding me, echoing off the walls. My pulse quickened, and I rushed back into the hallway, desperate to escape the supply closet that felt like an ominous trap. Suddenly, the lights went out. I was swallowed by darkness, the laughter now a cacophony, swirling all around me. Heart pounding in my chest, I forced myself to remain calm. I reached out, feeling the wall for guidance, each touch whispering a warning, stay away from the shadows. Then, just as quickly as they had gone, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the hall once more. Panic surged through me when I noticed the figure at the other end of the corridor, a small shadow standing still, gazing directly at me. "Who are you?" I gasped, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. There was no answer from the childlike form, just an unsettling silence. In that moment, I was struck by a sense of urgency. I needed to get out, but I also needed to know what was going on. I took a hesitant step forward, but the figure turned and vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but an icy chill that wrapped around me. Instinctively, I turned to run, but just as I did, the door to room 218 creaked open wide, beckoning me into the unknown. What lay waiting inside? I felt pulled toward it, the need to uncover the truth overwhelming my fear. There was no turning back now. The hospital wasn't going to let me go that easily. I hesitated at the door to room 218. My breath quickened, catching in my throat as I gripped the handle tightly. There was something overwhelmingly wrong about this place. But I couldn't turn back now. The urge to chase after the truth pushed me forward, but I stepped inside, the door creaking behind me. The room was flooded with a harsh fluorescent light, illuminating sterile white walls sparsely decorated with peeling posters about health and wellness. A single bed sat in the center, its sheets still neatly made as if waiting for a patient who would never arrive. What immediately caught my attention was the desk against the far wall. Papers were scattered across the surface, their edges crumpled like forgotten memories. I crossed the room, drawn to the disarray. As I looked closer, I noticed one of the sheets had a name scrawled across it, Mia Hargrove. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. I picked it up, reading the notes scribbled hastily in the margins. Patient disappeared, last seen in hallway. Last words, I'm playing hide and seek. My stomach twisted in knots. Who was Mia? What happened to her? And why did it feel as if those words were meant for me? I continued scanning the desk as the laughter returned, echoing around me like a ghost. I jumped, feeling the prickling sensation of being watched. My eyes darted toward the corner of the room, where the shadows seemed to curl and coil, almost coming alive. Just then, a tiny drawer caught my eye. It was slightly ajar, almost as if it wanted to be opened. With shaking hands, I pulled it open, revealing a small collection of items, a worn-out teddy bear, a few crayons, and a scrap of paper with childish handwriting. It read, "If you find me, we can play." Chills raced down my spine. I felt an intense pull, as if the room was breathing around me, whispering secrets I had yet to comprehend. I dropped the teddy bear suddenly. It hit the floor with a hollow thud as I heard footsteps echoing from the hallway. Panic washed over me. Were they the footsteps of a living person or something else? I whipped around toward the door, my heart racing as I pressed my back against the wall, willing myself to become invisible. "Help me," a voice called out softly, and I froze. It was the same childlike voice that had haunted me earlier. My heart pounded painfully in my ears, drowning out all sounds. Who are you?" I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. The air thickened like fog, every breath feeling like a weight pressing down on my chest. No response came. Instead, the footsteps grew louder. Someone or something was approaching. I felt a sudden urgency gripping me. I had to act. I spun around, bolting for the door just as it swung open with a violent force. A figure stood there, silhouetted against the light. "You shouldn't be here," it warned. I stumbled back, my pulse racing as I faced the unknown. That's when I saw it, a small shadow flitting through the corner of my eye. I turned, but it was gone, leaving only the echo of laughter in its wake. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I needed to escape, but the presence of the figure in front of me now filled me with dread. What had I uncovered? Whatever it was, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. I couldn't stand still. The figure loomed in the doorway, blocking my only escape. They were just a silhouette, but I could make out anxious movements. A hand twitched nervously at their side, as if they were deciding whether to help or hinder me. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice trembling. Their response was a chilling silence. Instead, they stepped forward, raising a finger to their lips in a shushing motion. I could barely breathe. The dim light flickered above us, casting erratic shadows across their features, but I couldn't decipher if they were friend or foe. Leave now, they whispered urgently. You don't understand what you're getting into. I wanted to comply, to turn and run, but my legs felt like they were glued to the floor. Where's Mia? I blurted out before I even thought about it. I remembered the name from the notes, felt it echo in my mind. This was her room. The figure's eyes widened, reflecting a glimmer of something fear, maybe. You shouldn't have come here. They know you've been digging. Who? What happened to her? My questions spilled out, desperate for answers despite the growing dread that clutched at my heart. Before they could respond, the echoing footsteps in the hallway stopped. A chill gripped my spine. I could sense a presence approaching, something dark and heavy that filled the air with an ominous weight. Please, the figure urged, glancing toward the door. I could tell they were debating whether to trust me or not. You need to hide. Just then, I heard a soft giggle, like that of a child, coming from the far wall. My mind raced with the possibility that it was Mia. I had to know. I couldn't just leave her behind, lost in this nightmare. I'm not going anywhere, I said, more defiantly than I felt. Not without knowing the truth. In that moment, the figure lunged toward me, their grip surprisingly strong as they pulled me back into the shadows near the bed. Stay quiet, they hissed. I barely had time to react before the door swung open again. A tall, imposing woman entered, her presence radiating authority. Her uniform was crisp, but her eyes were cold guardians of secrets better left buried. Where is the other one? She demanded, scanning the room as if she could see through the very walls. My heart raced. I could feel the figure beside me tense. I wanted to turn and flee yet was paralyzed by the fear of being caught. It's gone, the figure whispered, trembling beside me. The girl, she took it. What do you mean, she took it? The woman spat, anger sharpening her voice. Then everything went dark. A sudden blackout swallowed the room, the fluorescent lights flickering violently before plunging us into pitch blackness. I felt a surge of panic as I lost my bearings. Hold on tight, the figure urged, their voice faltering. Moments passed, each second stretching long and thin as I battled with my instinct to scream. I was trapped between two unknowns, the person beside me and the woman in front. The laughter returned, loud and echoing, making my skin crawl. When the lights flickered back on, the room was empty, save for me and the figure. My heart sank. Whatever was supposed to happen next, I felt it would be worse than anything so far. Now, the figure said, urgency punctuating their tone. We need to leave before they come back. But I knew I couldn't just run. I had to face whatever mystery lay ahead. As we moved cautiously towards the door, dread pooled in my stomach. What awaited us outside was likely far worse than the shadows I left behind. As I stepped carefully out of room 218, shadows darted at the edges of my vision, teasing my senses and whispering promises of the answers I craved. The figure beside me, their presence shrunk in the pallid lights, guided me through the eerie silence of the hallway. I could sense the urgency in their every movement, and whether it stemmed from fear, desperation, or both, I couldn't tell. Keep quiet, they murmured, stealing glances over their shoulder as we slipped past the nurse's station. A chill ran through me, not just from the cold air but from the oppressive weight of the unknown. What was it that had transpired here? The name Mia echoed through my mind, the whispered giggles fading into eeriness. Suddenly, the figure halted, eyes darting around. This way. We have to get to the fire escape, they said, leading me through a maze of hallways. Shadows writhed like living things, and my heart raced with every footfall. I had not made it this far to turn back. But just as we reached a small door marked emergency exit, we heard it, a deep, echoing voice that reverberated through the empty passageways like a dark promise. You can't run away. The figure beside me froze, and I felt my blood run cold. Whispers, no longer innocent giggles, danced around us, claiming the air. It knows, they whispered in horror. I reached for the doorknob, but my hand trembled, paralyzed by fear. Who knows? What do you mean? My voice broke, tension pulling at every word. Before they could respond, I sensed it. The laughter swirled like a sinister breeze around us, punctuated by the remnants of sharp fear etched into their features. And then I saw her, a small figure, her white dress glowing against the shadows. She emerged from a side hallway, eyes wide with a haunting mix of playfulness and sorrow. Play with me, she said, voice lilting like a melody, but it chilled me to the bone. Do not listen to her. The figure hissed, but I felt my body moving towards the child, unable to resist her eerie pull. What do you want? I managed to call out, my throat tight. Help me find them, she pleaded, arms outstretched. We just want to play. The laughter thickened, swirling into a tempest that twisted around my thoughts. I felt my resolve weakening. The stark contrast of innocence in her eyes struck me, drowning out the shadows that pressed in, but somewhere inside, the building energy screamed for survival. No. We can't help you. I shouted, clenching my fists at my sides. As if my words ignited something, the atmosphere shivered, the child's expression changing to confusion. Her voice fractured, but, you found me. In that moment, I broke free from the spell, remembering the locket clasped tightly in my hand. I reached for it, knowing there was meaning buried in its depth. The child seemed to sense it, tilting her head in curious longing. Behind me, the figure hissed again, we have to go now. I turned back and together we fled through the emergency exit, my heart racing as we stepped into the world beyond the hospital's grasp. The night enveloped us, a sharp contrast to the suffocating tension inside. As the door creaked shut behind us, silence fell. But the air around me was electrified, an unanswered question lingered on my mind, gnawing at my resolve. Did we leave her behind? The figure beside me paused, shadows knitting between our breaths. Maybe she has seen something we haven't. We can't go back, but, their voice trailed off, leaving a weight of uncertainty hovering above us. That I looked back at the hospital, memories of Mia, whispers, and fears blending together, and I knew that whatever had transpired there would haunt me. I turned away, determined to find answers, wondering if I could ever truly escape what I'd witnessed. That as I walked away, I felt the faintest tug of laughter trailing behind me in the wind. Would I ever be free of the past? Or was it forever entwined with my fate? I didn't know, and the uncertainty weighed heavily upon me. In the end, the girl had not vanished, she lingered somewhere in my thoughts, just out of reach, a mystery still calling me back. I moved to a different city weeks later, attempting to shake the remnants of my ordeal. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I still hear her voice gently woven into the laughter of children, and deep down, I wonder. What happened to Mia? What could have been if I had lingered just a moment longer? But some questions are left unanswered, echoes of shadows still trailing behind me, whispering in the recesses of my mind.